Hey, and welcome back, riders. Today we're going to revisit the Cube Reaction EX625, but 3 years into ownership. Got a lot of requests to go over what I've done with the bike, what I've experienced with the bike, and all the stuff that I've been doing to it and riding it over the last 3 years and last 3 years of ownership. So let's dive into how this trail taming machine has held up over the long haul. All right, bet you guys are all curious, so let's go. So right off the bat, 3 years ago, I got this bike from a local store here in Santa Barbara. Paid a little over $3,000 for it. I think it was a pretty good deal back then. It might be a little bit more expensive now. You're gonna have to go look and see how much it costs now. It's the Cube Reaction Hybrid EX625. And when I got it, some things that I'm gonna point out right now that I've changed. One, it did not come with the Max 6 tires. It came with its original tires with Bontrage tires. However, the rims are tubeless. So what I did, I mountain bike quite a lot. So all the miles that I put on this bike are going to be mostly mountain biking. So the Bontrage was getting I was getting quite a bit of flat. So they have obviously a tube inside that would get pinched when hitting rocks, and I got, I think I went through about 3 flats before I decided, hey, you know what? These rims right here, they're tubeless already. They come on the bike from Cube, ready to go tubeless. So I went Maxxis, and I have not had 1 flat since. And they've been holding up really well. So here's what I did as far as the tires are concerned. So the front is a 29-inch rim, and it's a 2.5 diameter tire. So you want a little bit thicker in the front, a little bit wider in the front for traction. And the rear is a 29 2.4. The rear seems to be getting a little bit a lot of use out of it, so I think I might have to replace this actually pretty soon. The number 2 change that I did pretty soon from out of the box is the new pedals. The pedals that came on it were pretty decent, but they weren't sticky enough, and for my mountain biking riding preferences, I like these little spikes to be a little bit higher so I could grip my shoes better. So I went ahead and just bought these one pedals from Amazon, and I could link them down in the links below, and they've worked great. I mean, they've taken quite a beating, as you could see, but I have not had a problem with them. I installed them myself. It took less than 10 minutes on each side. You could YouTube some videos for that, but they've worked great. So that's the second mod I did to this bike. And the third one, I wouldn't even consider it a mod, but it is the rear brakes. So far, I have replaced just the rear brakes, and the bike originally comes with brake pads that are not semi-metallic. They are fully fibered. So I replaced the rear brake with a semi-metallic pads. There's a video on this on my channel, so if you want to go look and see how to replace your own brake pads, you could go ahead and do that. But I replaced it with a semi-metallic brake pad. I think it works better. It does make some noise, especially when it gets wet and hot, but it's not excessive, and I think it works better, and they have lasted longer since I've installed them. So that's the third mod that I've done. But aside from that, I have not done any other mods to this bike, nor have I replaced any parts yet. So let me highlight some things that I think are obviously built really, really well on this bike. Number one, we can't not mention the Bosch Performance Line CX motor. I have not had one problem with this thing. It runs smoothly when I'm changing gears. I'm going from high to low. It's real smooth. Yes, it makes a little bit of noise, and there have been some comments in some of my bike sections that that the motor makes a little bit of noise. But you know what? It's a motor. It's supposed to make some sort of a noise, and honestly, I want it to make some sort of a noise, to make sure that something's there. But this thing is pulling hard, not one problem. I hadn't had to do anything to this little motor at all, and it's been really, really good. There's a charging port right here, so if you remove this little piece, you could charge your bike actually without having to remove the battery. I haven't used this one really at all because I try to remove the battery by taking the front part off right here, which is really easy. Just press that button, cover comes off, you put the key in there and the battery comes out as you take that in and charge it. It's nice that it actually locks in there. So let me show you on the other side. You got, oh, actually no, it's not on, it's inside the cover. Sorry about that. The frame itself, I have not had one issue with. It's held up so well over the years, 3 years. It's a sleek aluminum frame with a really good welds to it. You can see some of the, some of the welds are painted over, but you can see they're just really well done. Not one single problem, not one crack. And I beat up this bike. I mean, I go mountain biking on a regular basis. For you know, the first couple of years, I had my kid's seat right here. It was a forward-facing seat, and he would sit right here. So I bolted that to the frame right there. You know, minus a few scratches here from, you know, where the seat kind of sat. Nothing's going on with it. Just a really quality made frame. Not one problem with. Again, the bike has full Shimano components on it, from the brakes, front and rear, to the gearing in the back, the derailleur. All of these parts are Shimano, and they've held up really well over the years. I can't, you know, I keep waiting for, you know, I mean, this is obviously a hybrid electric bike, so I keep waiting for some of the derailleur back there to start missing gears. It hasn't yet, you know, it hasn't really worn out. So I'm surprised, and but I'm expecting it at some point that I'm gonna have to replace the derailleur, probably the front crank as well. If there's one thing, you know, over the years I've taken this bike, obviously mountain biking, over jumps, you know, it's taken bumps. I've fallen several times. In fact, I even took a tree full head on one time, which doesn't bode well for my mountain biking skills, but this thing held over really well. The one thing I would say that probably needs to be replaced ASAP is the front shocks. You can see they're the Sun Tour shocks that come originally with the bike. They're spring loaded in there, and they're somewhat adjustable up top here. You could lock them, you could lock it right there, or you could adjust it from high to low on this side, but there isn't really much of an adjustment that you can make, and I bottom out frequently on the trail. So if anything, I would probably go with some like really nice Fox shocks or something something similar. So definitely a mod that I would probably make in the future. All right, let's go over a little bit on the range, which is something that I'm sure you all are pretty concerned with. So this is the Bosch computer that comes with bike originally, and it's pretty simple to operate. You turn it on right there at the very top, pops off, pops on, and right off the bat, battery's fully charged. If you go through your Eco mode is the first. It gives you a range of what to expect on Eco mode. So 67 miles on Eco mode. I could usually get a lot more off of that if I'm pedaling. So on Eco mode, I'm saying I'll probably get like 80 miles if I keep it just on that. Tour mode is the next one. You're gonna get about 43 miles, and that's quite a little bit of a assist you're getting on tour mode. It's almost like you're not doing a lot of work at all. It's almost like a fully electric bike. So, you know, that's probably gonna work well for most people. Then you got the sport mode, which on a full battery, it's going to give you about 37 miles of range, is what this says. I would say it's probably lower than that on that, you know, full mode. It's almost on the full top range mode. The next one is the final, which is the turbo, and for that you could expect about 32 miles worth of range. Turbo, I mean, you're really not doing any of the work, and any of the gears. It's just full-on assistance from that Bosch motor down there. So you have you have 4 assistant levels you could choose, and you know, to be honest with you, the range on this model and on this battery, which is a 650 kilowatt hour battery, it's amazing. I mean, I charge this thing, you know, very seldom, and it seems over the last 3 years to have kept it's keeping its charge just as it did kind of when I first bought it. It hasn't really gotten down. I'm sure if I did some, you know, some real in-depth, you know, test, it probably has dropped a little bit, but it's not noticeable. That's what I'm saying. It's not noticeable at all. If you just to take a look real quick, if you press and hold this really quick, It's going to show you the trip, how much you've done in the last trip before resetting it. And if you press it one more time, it's going to show you total mileage. On mine, 1,084 miles, so 1,100 miles. I gotta say, out of those 1,100 miles, most of those miles have got to be downhill mountain biking. So that's a pretty rough life for this bike, but it's still holding up together really, really well. And I gotta say, you know, Cube's not paying me for this. Maybe they should, because I'm giving them a pretty good review, but it's a review based on reality. I mean, I've owned this thing for the last 3.5 years, and I have not done one thing to it that broke. So I will say that I have not done one thing except for the things I mentioned, you know, the replacing the rear brake, putting the Maxxis rimless tires on there, and getting the pedals. I clean it regularly. I oil the chain, I oil the derailleur and the front. I clean it real nice. I maintain it fairly well, and that's probably part of why it's been so good to me. But you know, the bike itself, it's a really, really well built bike. So yeah, the Bosch motor, I'm gonna say, it's proven to be a consistent power and torque, making the uphill, you know, battles way more manageable. Like I showed you guys on the top portion, you know, you got the Eco and the Tour mode, the first two. I think those are sufficient. If you are in somewhat decent shape, you could go through Tour mode from top to bottom and really get a decent workout, but also, you know, you're gonna get to the top of the hill, you know, feeling much better. That torque is so helpful, and the geometry of the bike, it's really well balanced. Even though it's a hardtail, as you can see, does not have the full suspension, and you know, the front shocks are, you know, mediocre at best. It's got a great geometry. The power and the torque of the Bosch motor just really gets you up those hills, and you know, the 4 levels of help you can get. You know, I think you could just do Eco mode and Tour mode, and you'd just be fine with that. The handling and stability, I think it's helped. Like I mentioned, I have a slightly bigger tire in the front, so 2.5 width on the tire in the front and 2.4 in the back, so it gives you a little bit more stability. I leave the front one generally just slightly a little bit less PSI than the rear, so it kind of grabs a little bit more and it's a little bit wider. Pattern on the trail, so that helps a lot when I'm going down the trail. All right, we got to talk about the seat a little bit. Again, I put over 1,000 miles on this bike, and the seat that it came with is called a Sequence, and it looks the same as the day I bought it. It's pretty comfortable. It's got some pretty good foam on there, so you know, to me, it's a really good comfort. At one point, I did put a little different seat on here that had the suspension part on it, which worked pretty well, but I decided to take it off. It was expensive, and it wasn't making enough of a difference for me to really keep it. If you're gonna go that different, might as well get a rear shock bike, but I like hardtails. That's just me, my personal preference. The handlebars, the grips are actually, I like them very much. The Cube grips, they come with the bike. I think they're really grippy, and they've held up well over the years as well. So I've added obviously a bell for downhill riding and a couple other things, but nothing. I have not made any mods to this bike really whatsoever, and it's been just a beast. The other thing I bought was ABUS lock, the light version, which works really well, and I could take it anywhere. I mean, one thing you really, you know, gotta keep an eye on these bikes when you're going somewhere like downtown, and you need to keep them safe because they are being stolen quite frequently. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, you know, the bike is durable, it performs really well, continues to perform really well. 3 years into it, the battery life is the same essentially as when I first bought it. Like I said, in that first Eco mode, you could get upwards of 80 miles of power assisted ride. That's a heck of a lot of miles. That's a trip from, you know, where I live down to LA. But it's held up really well. It's very versatile. I mean, I had my kid on here, with the seat right there in the front facing seat. You could put that on right on that member right there. Hook up anything you want to it, baskets, whatever you want, if you want to do this bike for, you know, not a mountain bike application. But it's in the ever evolving world of electric mountain bikes, I think this is, you know, this is kind of like a staple. It should be like kind of like the, you know, the Honda, or no, I shouldn't say Honda. Well, Honda's reliable, but it's a really reliable bike that has treated me really well, and it's really great downhill. And like I said, with a few modifications, like the front forks, maybe the front shocks, obviously the tires, the tubeless tires, and maybe a couple other things, you can make this bike a real screamer. Anyway, so hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and please click that subscribe button, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.